Now, the rest of the story.
All right, welcome back to the rest of the story. I know most of you already knew that, but a little bit of background. A little while back, we had an individual show up to the farm and was interested in a particular structure on the farm. Now, we have no desire to ever use the structure again, as in never ever, as in ever ever never. So it really was beneficial to us to get rid of this structure in the manner that they offered to do it. So after about 3 weeks of waiting patiently, because we were told that we were going to be getting a phone call back here within a few days after that particular person left, we actually were called here within the matter of, I think it was just the last 2 or 3 days, that these people were going to be showing up to collect and take down this particular structure. So this is after a day's worth of work. They were having some issues with their scaffolding setup. Now, yes, part of the silo is already gone. A good part of the sky that's seeing sunshine again that it hasn't seen in probably decades. But they're going through, they're dropping them from 70 plus feet up. I believe this is a 70 foot tall by 16 foot wide structure. They are starting to break a few a little bit, but that is expected. And they do have these nicely stacked piles of, or pallets loaded with these staves. They were really happy to collect the silo, take it down. They said it was in really good condition. They said the big thing that they were interested in was the plaster on the inside was actually worn down to the point that they could take them apart really easy, as opposed to a newer silo or a silo that has a lot more of the plaster on it, that they have to hit them, beat on them more with a hammer to get them busted apart. So the unloader, which they've been kind of unclear if they're really going to take the unloader or not. I do know that they are leaving the motor, but all right, my camera acted up and I had some visitors, so I'm going to try to take off right where I was, or start back where I was and just go from there. On this unloader, this is actually one of the last things that we did as far as maintenance wise to this silo. And what we ended up doing, Dad and I did in like the coldness of winter, I think it was like January, but we had to change all 3 of these paddles on this unloader blower, which is just a smaller version of like your chopper, your silo unloader or whatever. So what we had to do was go up and pull 2 bolts out and drop these off. These are actually pretty new because these weren't in here and ran that long before we quit using it. Is say the old ones that we had in here, they were all worn back on these ears here. And what was happening was, and of course in the middle of winter, you'd go and start feeding silage and you start to get a real amount of feed going through it. And what it would do is it would plug. And then it gets kind of aggravating to have to climb the silo every single day in the coldness of winter, and have to go literally just go through and grab the pulley and then just give it a half a spin, and it frees right up. So it didn't really plug it up bad enough that you took hours and hours to undo it, but it was just tedious. So once again, this is all the steel that they got off of it. The unloading arm there, I think that's the original. It took 6 or 7 of those guys pulling it out of that silo. They manhandled it out of there. I was kind of surprised how quick they actually pulled it out. But all the doors here are really showing their age. So there's a couple good examples here. Well, I think the best example is this one, where you can see how the corrosiveness of the silage starts to take its toll on all this metal. The lower in the silo, which means it's in around the silage more, it gets, well, when it's filled first and emptied last, it has that silage working against it all the time, especially when it's in the chute. It's at the bottom of the chute, so the silage is always falling down on top of it. I mean, I guarantee you this is probably one of the lowest doors in here. Oh, bottom of the pile, it probably is. So this isn't, they literally did not go through and like throw any of this stuff out. They literally pulled it out and very gently like dropped it out. So this is pretty much what the doors were looking like by the time these guys showed up and tore it apart. They said they were going to try to salvage some of the pieces, but like this one isn't so bad. The arms aren't so bad, but on some of these doors, here's a good one where you can see the rust and corrosion is really starting to work on them. That's what gets you. You see, you got all this play here. That's actually what caused Dad to have that close call that he did. It was probably 15, 20 plus years ago. We were going through, we were getting ready to fill it. I mean, this is before I was really even around. It was before I was around as far as actually active on the farm. And what ended up happening was, as he was climbing up it to get it ready to be filled, because you have to raise the unloader up. Well, he was about 3/4 of the way up, and what happened was he had his hand, luckily, like extremely luckily, he had his hands on the bottom bar on the door above his head. So he was holding on here, and when he was going up to grab this next one, the door below it actually kicked out, because like that door over there, the handles were loose enough, it allowed it to pivot, and it actually opened up on him, and Dad fell down into the silo, a completely empty silo. And the only thing that saved him is the fact that he was able to hold onto that bar above his head as well as he did, because he was in the silo, hanging in the silo all the way up to his chest. So he said that he pulled himself back up and he was sitting on that concrete in the entryway of the door. He said he sat there and shook for about 15 minutes. And I don't think anybody's going to blame him for that, because I'm pretty sure everybody would when you get that close to a near-death experience. So we got the roof out here, which I missed seeing him take it off, because I was kind of standing around. I didn't do much of anything today, just because every time I got more than 500 feet away from them, I got called back, or they needed something, or it was a combination of a little bit of everything. Between needed a little bit of hydraulic oil because they blew a line on their pump, or they needed some waste oil because their lift, their scaffolding stuff was rusty and it didn't want to slide like it was supposed to, and I think you need a tool or two. So kind of a wash for me as far as my productivity today, but it's not very often, I think everybody will agree, that you get to watch one of these get taken down. So this is the last time, well, it was the first time I've actually seen the inside of this roof in quite a few years. We filled it for the last time in 2013, and then from 2013 it was emptied completely in 2014, and then never even once considered being filled again after that, just because we have no use for it. I'd rather use the blue ones. And anybody that's going to ask, I have no idea what's going to happen with the blue silos. I mean, that one, it's a question mark if we'd ever get rid of it. The little one, we have no intention of getting rid of it. The big blue one down at my place, I currently have every intention of using that one yet. So this roof, if you guys are wondering why they just, I'm assuming they just dropped it off. I wish I could have seen them do it. They're going to convert this silo. They're going to take it, and actually they're going about 15 miles that way, and they're planning on putting it up as a 14 foot across instead of a 16. So you can actually see the sunlight in there is kind of busted up, but Yeah, so they actually got a pretty good go on it. They didn't start until about 3 o'clock this afternoon. These guys that are doing it, this is not their full-time job. They're just farmers, and they wanted the storage. So they ended up finding this one, or came across us, and went ahead and started to disassemble it after our approval, of course. But I think this is their second that they're actually taking it apart. They need it purely just for feed. There are some in the area that take them apart, refurbish them, and they actually send them back to Pennsylvania. But I don't know. I'm sure, I already know where it's going. I'm sure I'll wait a year or so, and we'll see if we can't find out where they put it up at. But they actually did really good as far as the amount of broken staves that they got. Less than a dozen. I mean, they got a couple there that are busted. They had not even a handful around the other side of the silo. And these, which is kind of convenient for how they broke apart, these are actually really convenient for like using in the machine shed. I'm sure they're not going to take them all because I'm not going to let them. But taking like a dozen of these are really handy having around the machine shed or around the farm. Really good for a tire block, for stopping grain wagons and stuff like that when you want to park them out here. Also good for like when you want to use the hydraulic jack for picking something up. Really good for stacking. Pretty solid. Yeah, I wasn't down here when they were dropping these off. I was down here a couple times throughout the morning, but other than using the skid steer and setting the slime out or spreading the slime out for them, but other than that, they were pretty much on their own. And once they started dropping these off there, I was up in the machine shed, back in safe distance, so I didn't have to worry about a stray piece of concrete hitting me. So if I haven't said it before, because like I said, this is my second time filming this. I already filmed this video once and it did not save the audio. I promise you that last video was a lot better than this one you're getting, unfortunately. Sorry. But we went through, I didn't go through. This morning when they called, or they stopped by, because they actually started down at my place, and they actually were going to start tearing apart the silo down there, as they had the wrong address. By the time I got up here, because they were knocking on my door this morning, and literally in the few minutes it took me to like get up here this morning, they had already pulled off these couple bands in the bottom and had knocked a hole in the side of the silo. I was wondering how they were gonna get the unloader out, and I mean, that pretty much answered our question. So this is the first time I've actually looked in here today, so I guess I can see it right along with you guys. As you can see, it's right down to the dirt floor. It stinks in here. It smells like bird poop. But that is their scaffolding set up. If you guys can see it. That's what the inside of the silo looks like. They were really happy to get this silo when we told them they could take it down. They said it's pretty much ideal for disassembly because all of the plaster is pretty well shaved off of it at this point. And it does come apart really quick. When they were pulling it apart, they were pulling it off 2 layers at a time. So for working for 2 hours, they really peeled off a lot of the staves already. But I don't know how many of you would be all for climbing that or being up on top of that when all it is a big heavy pipe holding it up in the center. To be fair though, those are pretty heavy. I was watching them when they were taking it down up above, when they were pulling it down, and the guy that did it, it pretty much took everything he had just to pull it down. And I think you guys can see that's how they got back down here from this morning. They just climbed right down, or from tonight when they got done, they just climbed down the chute there. I thought those chutes actually were on there secured a lot better than what they are, but there's just a couple clips, and when they get down to where they have the concrete below the top of the chute, all it does is it latches in there, it locks in on itself. It just literally just pull it up, and they got them a couple layers stacked already. Somebody wants to go home, but oh, I don't know. Well, not for me. Say the guys that were jumping up and down and the way they were doing this earlier, I'm not afraid of heights if I trust what's holding me up. There is no way you would get me to do any of the in the air up the silo work at all, just from seeing what they were doing. I'll show you the platform up there that literally, well, at the very top of the silo, which was what, 70 feet up in the air, one of the guys actually crawled out because they put their little platform off the side attached to a rope and a pulley system, and crawled down about 3 foot down the outside of the silo onto that little platform, and then commenced to go down the side of this silo down through all of those rings and loosen all those rings with a ratchet. And there isn't enough money in the world to get Travis to do that. Nope. If it come down to having to do that or knocking it over, I'd say that 4th of July show we had would have been pretty awesome, because it all probably would have been strapped to the side of the silo and light the fuse. At least it'd go out in a blaze of glory. They do actually have a little bit of a hand crane system. They got a rope hanging over the side where they're able to drop different parts and pieces down off the silo, and this is one of them. It allows them to go all the way around the silo with it because it sits on that center stand that you guys saw. And what it does is allows them to drop these very important pieces off the silo, because you really wouldn't want to drop this because you're almost guaranteed to break it. For those of you that aren't aware of what this is actually the door frame. So you got the hinge points in here, and it's actually got the formed pieces for the door, so the door latch is supposed to lock in there. Ideally that's what it does. Sometimes it's full of like hay, chaff, silage, bird poop. So I mean, it works 100% of the time, most of the time. So as far as the feed bunk, that's gonna get ripped out. This cow lot, I know you guys are looking right into the sun, so am I, and I can't see much other than a lot of weeds and grass and crud. The plan is we are going to be getting cattle in here again. I know some of you are probably getting tired of me saying it. My heifers, my cows, if I do, when I do actually, buy them this fall, I'm planning on dumping them in here just because I like to be able to watch them. So they'll get this lot, grub back down, get the weeds down in it. And there's a whole lot of truth to that when it comes to when you have cattle off of a farm for X amount of time, the farm starts to deteriorate. And it's amazing how we haven't had cattle in here since June 5th. And this is what the lot looks like since June 5th. So I mean, I want to get cattle back in here. We'll get something in here. So, especially with this silo out here too. I mean, it's not like it interferes with the cattle lot whatsoever, but they did say that it's supposed to take it down right down to ground level. So if we actually had a little bit of an area in here that's cleared off, we could actually use it for parking equipment or even stacking bales. Maybe, hopefully it'd be nice if we could stack something back in here and utilize some more of the space we have around here. So yeah, I don't know if anybody's thinking I'm actually acting all that nostalgic, but well, this silo actually had a pretty big part of my life, or was a pretty big part of my life. Taking my age into account, I spent at least 3/4 of my life dealing with this silo, with this feed bunk, with that barn. Now the barn is down to very minimal use, if any at all anymore. And the older I get, the more the memories will get older and begin to fade. And even a video like this is actually to hopefully look back in 10, 20, 30, 40 years and look back and reminisce on the fact that I still had some hair in my head. So I'm sure my kids should appreciate it. If you don't, you guys you're evicted out of the house now. Doesn't matter, you hit 18, you're out. So I'm gonna be a strict parent. I'm gonna be awesome. So you guys want to see what's they had for a bench real quick? This is all the guy was sitting on. Had a rope and a hook. I don't even know if they had it roped. I just know they had it hooked here. And he was swinging around the silo with a welded little piece. I'm not even entirely sure if I trust him well, to be honest with you guys. And swinging down the silo. Nope, not for this guy. So here's all the rods that go around the silo. They're all in really good condition. Kind of alarming for how easily he pulled those, loosened all these nuts off, because he was really just running around the outside of it and wasn't hardly doing anything at all to loosen them. So I don't know if that has something to say for how tight this silo really was as far as standing there. So yeah, stay tuned for a later date, another video in regards to the silo update, because they are very confident they're going to have that down tomorrow, and I believe them just for how quick they took down what they did. So now you know the rest of the story. I'll talk to you later.